Okay, we've done our harvest data, and let's presume that this is going to return true, and we're going to return all data as a Boolean. Remember that harvest data returns a bool. I'm just going to collapse this a little bit so that we don't get so much in the page, because that's one of the great problems with things when we've got so much to do. So everything else we need to do now is inside this one here, the event raised when we click this summary button. And the summary button is going to be the one that processes the data we have on the form, enables it to be returned as an object that can be passed into the summary page and shown to show the things that we need to show. Right, so that's what we're going to do in this one. And remember, we're going to use this private bool harvest data to make sure we've got the data first. So the first thing we're going to do is check whether the harvest data has worked. So if parenthesis harvest data, so that returns true. I get mixed up with parentheses there. So if harvest data is true, we can go on and process the data. But what I want to do first is to add a condition for the false. So this is if it doesn't harvest data, we need to deal with that first. And it's really easy. Message box cannot show date summary with invalid data. So if this didn't work, it won't show any data. It will just drop out of this method, and it'll just give this message box, which will give the user the information that they need for that. Before we actually get into it, I want to put something in as another module variable, which is going to help us to demonstrate inheritance, because you need to work out that a person user is a new person user. So we can get this demonstration of the use of classes there. So I'm returning, I'm going to create a private object called person user, which is of type person user, and that we created earlier on, so we're all okay on that. But I wanted to do that next. Right, so we're back in here, so I'll just bring this up to the top so we've got lots of space. So we've got good data, so now we can start to use some data. So our person user that we've just created, forename, equals forename. So why am I getting this error? Very simple reason. If you look at person user, we didn't ever inherit from person. So it can't have a forename, it's only got this key lower limit. So if I now do the colon here, person, that says inherit from person. So if we now go back to page details, sorry, that one, lovely. Person user doesn't just have the key limit anymore, it has forename and surname that it can use. So that's good. So that's just a demonstration of the inheritance and the fact that all of these fields are now available to us and the error has gone away. So we've gathered this data in. We've said we want a user data object, so we can use that to hold more data. And then we can populate the user data object in the next part of the code. So what we need to check next is that we've got data, we've got all this stuff, but is the user key data, the one that we got in the user string, do all of the characters match what we're allowed to use? So the opening statement for this is that if utility validator characters all valid on the user string, then that. Now we'll also want to have an error trap so that if they're not, we can return that. So let's do that first. Tell them it's wrong, and then indicate which one of the characters is wrong so that they get the point and they can fix it. So let's deal with the true situation. So we know that we've got the right data, we've done the harvesting, We check that they're all true. Now we can actually make that thing work. So string valid is true. Show them a message to say all the characters are valid. A bit of a flummery there, it doesn't really need to happen. And then we can populate our user data, new user data, with all of the things we get from the data by processing. So I'm just going to move this up a bit here so that we can focus in on it. So for our user data, the forename equals the forename. We know that. That's the one that's up here. We've got the forename, so we've got that. The surname equals the surname. The username equals utility string make username using the forename and the surname. And remember that it takes the first letter of the forename and the first letter of the surname, and then it adds the random number. The original string is this because we want to show them what the original string was. Then we reverse it to encrypt it. Then we give it a score using the facilities that we created already. And then we say, how strong is it? Because that's what we say, weak, medium, and so forth, and strong. So that's how we do it. We've now got the whole thing processed. We said, okay, if we could harvest the data, let's do that. If not, we get the error message there. And if it's going to be valid data, which all the characters in the string are going to be acceptable against the acceptable ASCII codes, we say it's true, and then we make our data in this way. So we're now in a position where we know that we've got the valid characters, but just imagine that they want to indicate to the user what they have to do if they've got it wrong. We just show them a little message box saying there was a problem with the data, follow the message instructions, and that's where it says, invalid character at position 15, whatever it might be, and it tells them what they have to do. Right. So we're now in a position that we've got valid data. So what we want to do is to take this valid data and pass it to page summary. And what we are going to do is we're going to pass it as a class, and we're going to pass it as a class called user data to pass, which is of type user data that we've already created. So this is pretty straightforward, but it's got some nice bits in it that you may not have seen before. So let's create our object first, which is var variable. Make C# do its work and work out what type it has to be, equals new user data. Then we're doing exactly the same as we did up here, and we're populating it all with these, but this is for passing over onto the next page. And we've called it user data to pass. We know we've got good stuff because of all of the work we've done up here. And I could have set up a variable in the top end of the module to just call it here, but I'm going to recreate it here. Bit of overkill, but I think it's okay. So this is another way of declaring variables and then using their types inside curly braces to initialize all the values. So this is one of the great benefits of the object-oriented system that we've used and the approach to programming that we took. It's all ready to go. We don't have to start to write any code. We don't have to put very long, complicated lines of code in here, which would be very difficult to understand and very difficult to maintain. We just call all the methods that we use when we created utility string and utility validator. So it's really straightforward for us just to call them because we did all the hard work up front. So we've now got this object here. This is the first time you're going to come up against the way in which we navigate inside WPF from one page to another. And I've actually got the if and else's out of sequence slightly, but here we go. This fixes this one, which was left as a bit of an orphan. So, if string valid, else. Cannot show the summary without the valid data. So that's a little bit misleading from what we had before. Do that. I really can't be bothered to go back through all this again. Just use the code file, copy what I've done, and you'll be fine. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say if the string is valid, var page summary equals new page summary. And then we're going to say I'm going to pass this user data to pass along with this new page summary. Then we use what's called the navigation service to navigate to page summary. And that's how you navigate inside WPF. But this has got a problem. It says page summary does not contain a constructor that takes one argument. So what we need to do is we need to fix page summary before we can use this method to pass data to it. It's really easy to fix, but let's do that right now. So open up the code behind for page summary, and there it is. And in the constructor, we need to tell it to prepare to receive a user data summary passed. So let's go back here. It loves it now. So that's good. So we've now enabled this data to be taken forward to the other page. So how do we do that? We say var page summary equals new page summary along with this data we want to pass. And then we say this dot navigation service, which is built into WPF, navigate. Which page do you want to navigate to? Page summary. So that's our page details complete. And I'm sorry I got that out of sort of sync because it's just so many nested ifs, and I had to build it up for you gradually. But we'll do that, and you can just copy the code from the printout that you get in the GitHub. Couldn't think of the words there. I'm so tired. So just to finish off, I've done a quick build, and everything seems to be in order. And what we'll do in the next video is we'll actually encode all of the stuff to show the summary on page summary. One video, maybe two, but we'll see how we go, and I'll certainly make it as long as it needs to be. On this occasion, I'm going to give you all of this stuff as a text file, but please try and understand. I'm just making sure that we get this evidence together as much as we can, as fast as we can. One thing you have to be very careful about when you're using the data is that everything that I used as naming is exactly the same as what you use as naming. So what I suggest is that if you're going to copy my code rather than type it out, when you get this big method, for example, you've already created the method, the click event method, by using the interface, and remember the F12 stuff. So copy everything between the opening and closing curly braces, but watch your curly braces so that you don't make a mistake. So remember, you've got a leading and a closing curly brace after that particular click method, and everything goes between there. A bit at a time is probably the best way to do it, making sure that you get everything and you don't get the errors with the curly braces, because it's dead easy to get that wrong.